Hello, my name is Shane Sunday, and I did the multiple intelligences approach. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The multiple intelligences approach grew out of a philosophy developed by Howard Gardner, who was a researcher of cognition and education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Gardner's ideas were basically a rejection or critique of the Stanford Binet IQ test, which Gardner asserted only measured a small spectrum of intelligence that was mostly limited to language and problem solving skills. He argued that it was an ethnocentric point of view because other cultures value other types of intelligence more than those particular two. And he laid out 8 different types of intelligences, which was later expanded to 9, which we're going to take a look at later. The multiple intelligences approach basically attempts to cater to each student's unique combination of strengths to enable them to most proficiently become effective at language acquisition. So, for the nature of language, in my proposals, look at the language of an individual, not as an added on or somewhat peripheral skill, but rather as central to the whole life of the language learner and user. And in that sense, language is held to be integrated with other integral aspects of the individual's personality, such as interpersonal relationships, intrapersonal relationships, bodily activity, music, and so on. It is not seen to being limited as just something that is taken on from a linguistics or grammatical perspective, but rather it encompasses all aspects of communication. The nature of language learning. Gardner himself did not attempt to apply his theory of multiple intelligences specifically to language learning. Proponents of his theory, however, focus on creating a sort of learner buffet that enable each student's strengths to shine through so that they may find personal meaningfulness and stimulation. By nature, it is a more holistic approach to language learning when compared to the other approaches. So, the objectives of this approach are to identify the student's biological proclivities which serve them as learning strengths. Students will typically exhibit strengths in a few of the following intelligences. They will have average proficiency in most and be weak in one or two. These are the intelligence types. Verbal and linguistic, which is basically well developed verbal skills and sensitivity to the sounds, meanings, and rhythms of words. Logical and mathematical intelligence, think problem solving skills, or the ability to think conceptually and abstractly, and the capacity to discern logical and numerical patterns. Spatial or visual intelligence, that is the capacity to think in images or in pictures and to visualize accurately and abstractly, think artists. Musical intelligence, pretty straightforward, the ability to produce and appreciate rhythm, pitch, and timbre. Interpersonal intelligence, the capacity to detect and respond appropriately to the moods, motivations, and desires of others. Intrapersonal intelligence, the capacity to be self aware and in tune with inner feelings, values, beliefs, and thought processes of oneself. Naturalistic intelligence, that is the ability to recognize and categorize plants, animals, and other objects in nature. And finally, existential intelligence, and that is the sensitivity and capacity to tackle deep questions about human existence, such as what is the meaning of life, why do we die, and how did we get here. Lesson plans should try to appeal to each of the preceding 9 in a full classroom full of students. However, if the teacher already knows his or her students' strengths or intelligences, then he can cater to those. And that is a bit easier with a smaller class or when dealing with one individual. The learner's role in all of this is to embrace that language learning is part of their overall development on a deeper, more personal level, rather than just learning a new skill that is disconnected from the rest of their lives. Students are also encouraged to become more aware of their strengths and how they can apply those strengths to be the most effective language learners and learners in general. There is no prescribed or recommended syllabus for the MI approach. The textbook suggests that it can combine well with other approaches or methods, and there is a sequence proposed by Lazier. 1. Awaken the intelligence through multisensory experiences. 2. Amplify that intelligence within the context of the student's experience. 3. Teach with or for that intelligence so that it is linked to the focus of the class or the daily objectives. And 4, transfer the intelligence so that students can see how the first 3 steps apply to real world, out of the classroom experiences and contribute to their greater enrichment as well rounded human beings. Teachers' role in the MI approach is to provide students with a learning buffet, whereupon they can find which approach holistically works best for them rather than using a prescriptive model from which to construct curriculum. Teachers should embrace their role in this position as extending beyond teaching a language, because they are in fact helping students develop their intelligences and learn more about themselves at the same time. The activity list for each type of intelligence is huge, but I chose one for each. If you want to follow along in your handout, you can, or you can just listen. Verbal or linguistic intelligence, telling stories or writing stories in the target language. Logical or mathematical intelligence, solving mysteries, problems, or puzzles in the target language. Spatial or visual intelligence, play a Pictionary game in the target language. Bodily or kinesthetic intelligence, play charades in the target language. Musical intelligence, listening to, singing, or writing songs in the target language. Interpersonal intelligence, cooperative games in the target language. So, intrapersonal intelligence, keep a journal or write an autobiography in the target language. Naturalistic intelligence, take a hike in nature and learn the target language names for flora and fauna. And existential intelligence, learn the basic terms for philosophical or religious discourse in the target language. Because it is not a prescriptive approach and there is no set syllabus, the role of instructional material varies as widely as the activities, and instructional material should correspond to the activities that are, I guess, catered to each of the different types of intelligences. So, therefore, when choosing the role of instructional materials, basically just figure out what intelligences you are dealing with in your classroom and then choose according to that. So for my sample lesson plan, I clarified with our teaching assistant and was told that the best way to go here is to pick one of the intelligences with which to develop a sample script rather than to develop a sample script for each one. And that will exemplify what is to be done for each of them within the recommended set of activities that are best for that intelligence set. So, moving on, I chose naturalistic intelligence for my sample script, and if you will, please accompany me in a hike with my hypothetical class in the woods as I go through Lazier's recommended sequence of 4, I guess, approaches for awakening the student's intelligence. So, here we go. Lesson plan for naturalistic intelligence. Step 1. Okay, class, today we are going to take a hike so we can learn English terms for some of the plants and animals that are commonly found in nature. Please enjoy yourself while we are out here. It's a beautiful day, the views are amazing, and the air is fresh. But also remember as we proceed that you will always have these terms with you while you are enjoying nature on your own, and it can help inform the way you interact and view the natural world and your relationships with others and yourself. Step 2, awaken or amplify the intelligence within the context of student experience. So check out how I do this. I want you guys to pay special attention to the natural world while we are out here. Let's take a look at some of the things we can see, starting with the most basic. And here's where I bend down and touch the soil. There can be a few this can be called a few different things. Runs hand through soil. It can be called earth, soil, dirt, or just the ground. They all refer to different aspects of the same thing, meaning these words. As you look around, the second most common thing you will see is the trees. Trees are all around us in the natural world, at least here in the state of Virginia, and there are many types of trees, but they all fall under the single category of the word tree. Taking a step back from trees, another type of plant is a fern. This is a fern, students. Please everyone line up and touch it. Do you feel the texture of the plant? Remember, ferns and trees are both types of plants. They are rooted in the earth, dirt, or soil, or ground, which, if you guys can remember, is the subject that we first talked about. Step 3, link the intelligence to the focus of the class. So today we learned a lot of vocabulary words for plants and animals while we enjoyed a lovely hike in the woods. For the purposes of our homework tonight, I will give you guys a picture of the forest, and I want you to go through and identify at least 10 things using English words that we learned here today that describe elements of the natural world. And of course for this, we would have done more than the 3 that I mentioned for examples, but it was basically part of our class to only I guess, lay out how we would do it. And of course, a class would be much longer than, the small amount of time I spent. So we would go through and pick out all the different animals and plants that were commonly found in the forest, insects, the whole nine. Step 4, apply to the real world. I really do love nature, and I know you guys do too. It is important that we study nature in the classroom in our English class, so we can identify common elements of the natural world in English, and that will be helpful to you on the test. But beyond the classroom, these lessons are also endlessly and intrinsically rewarding. Today you learn words that can help you reach out to your English-speaking friends during hikes or even while looking out the window or telling a story. It is through these types of experiences that people can connect to each other and understand our cultures, both the ones we grew up in and other respective cultures, on a deeper level. Through these types of connections to people and nature, we can learn more about ourselves and learn more about the world at large in a way that makes us all able to better understand and interact with the world around us. And that is the key to understanding the multiple intelligences approach. In conclusion, I hope what you guys take away from the multiple intelligences approach of language teaching and learning here is that everyone has a different set of strengths and, if you will, weaknesses as far as learning goes. Everyone has a different type of intelligence, and within that, it is possible to appeal to every intelligence in a different way that enables students to most effectively take on the sometimes impossible task of learning a new language, especially after the critical period. Really, what is at hand here is finding a way to get this difficult information through to students. And in order to do that, we have to find out how students are best able to acquire it. I very much appreciate you guys listening to me here today, and if anyone has any questions, you are welcome to send me a message. I want to thank you for your time and respect, and remember, everyone is different, we all learn differently, and sometimes the best way to teach people is to figure out their strengths, or as Gardner would say, biological proclivities, in order to do so. Thanks, and everyone have a wonderful day.